Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Six Pack Network. I'm your host, Dylan Clemons. My co host here today with me is Joe Bond, founder of Fantasy Six Pack. And we are continuing our training camp check in shows where we are going around to all 32 NFL teams and interviewing a beat writer or reporter on what they've seen or heard at training camp. In this episode, we are talking the Arizona Cardinals, and here helping us do so is Bo Brack, reporter and host of the PHNX Cardinals podcast. Bo, appreciate you giving us your time in such a busy part of the year, especially on cut day. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Dylan, Joe. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk some Cards ball and finally start talking about a regular season and get this preseason nonsense behind us.
Absolutely. Definitely excited for the regular season myself as well. Before we jump into the interview, I just want to remind everyone, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and hit that bell for notifications so you know when a new video drops on the channel. And then head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans to become an all-access member where you get access to our award-winning rankings, draft cheat sheets, and our F6P Discord where you get all your custom league advice and questions answered by anybody on the Fantasy Six Pack staff. And that truly is the best part. And right now, you can also save a little cash as well at sign up by using promo code F6PNFL24 for 15% off. But Joe, without further ado, hit Bo with the first question we got for him here.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking some Kyler Murray to start here. How has he looked in his, I guess you can call it his second year in this offense? He had half a year last year, right? How's he looking this offseason? Another year removed from the injury and feeling, with another few months in this offense.
Yeah, Kyler Murray's looked great so far. Held out the entire preseason, had nothing to do with health-related issues or fear of him getting injured or anything like that. It might be from a protection standpoint, but for the most part, it was because Kyler Murray was able to show the Cardinals coaching staff everything that they wanted to see throughout training camp as far as his operation in the Arizona Cardinals huddle, at the line of scrimmage, pre-snap, and then also post-snap, what he's able to do with his, I think, budding array of playmakers that includes Marvin Harrison Jr. And, the second year is such a key thing, Joe, because, it's his first full offseason with the team because he was rehabbing and really didn't get a chance to kind of integrate himself into this offense until about mid-October last year because of NFL rules and restrictions as far as, players that are injured. So he really kind of took advantage of the 8 games he played at the end of last season, took what he liked, maybe took out what he didn't like, got with offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, and I think they've got a pretty good plan in place that's going to set Kyler Murray up for the best, chance that he's going to have at success here at the NFL level from an infrastructure standpoint, play calling and playmaking standpoint. So I think Kyler Murray's poised to have a really rock solid season, obviously with the qualifier if he stays healthy, because it's been since 2020 that he's had a full season, so it's been a long time. But I think if Kyler plays the bulk of the games, he and the Cardinals are going to be in a decent spot.
I'd like to hear that. Yeah, Kyler is someone in the fantasy realm too, is someone who's being slept on. I feel like heading into this year.
I've seen him going
well.
up. Everybody's
moving up now.
Oh yeah.
Close
to we get to the season, everybody's like, oh, he's the last real running quarterback who's done it before.
Right. Matthew Berry said he averages 20 points a game in his career, 20 points per game in his career. He was over 17, 6 of the 8. He's consistent because that running part of his game, it's huge. It's crucial in fantasy.
Absolutely. Switching over to the running back side of things now, and James Conner has been the mainstay of this Cardinals backfield. Unfortunately, he's just dealt with so many injuries throughout his career, but when he's on the field, he's been awesome. They go out, they draft Trey Benson this season. How do you see this backfield shaking out? Do you see it as more of a 1A, 1B, or is James Conner clearly ahead of Trey Benson at this point?
It's the latter. It's James Conner's way ahead of Trey Benson right now, and mostly because he's beloved by the coaching staff, the locker room, what he did last year when he wasn't on the IR, which, it feels like it's inevitable at this point. Like, just, reserve a couple games for him to be out. But when he was healthy last year, 5 yards per carry, and he was a guy that was in the top of the league as far as explosive runs, and he also went over the 1,000-yard mark, and he's been over the 1,000-yard mark from scrimmage every year that he's been with the Arizona Cardinals, and he's been kind of a really rock solid player around the goal line. So, when healthy, that's the thing, right? James Conner is a huge contributor, and 29 years old going into the last year of his contract. I think the Cardinals, they don't get credit for this previously because the regime is such a mess. But, Monty Ossenfort understands that, sometimes you got to have an in-house successor. And I think that's exactly what Trey Benson is. He's the future of the running back position, but the future isn't here in 2024. Outside of, I think that Benson is the handcuff. I think he's the guy that resembles James Conner's ability and style and the ability to kind of plug and play when he does miss time, which feels like he hasn't had a season at the NFL level that he hasn't missed time. So I think it's James' job, and then Trey Benson as, backup right now, and really won't have a role beyond that until, James isn't on the field.
Has Benson showed you some flashes in camp with maybe big play possibilities at all, or what are your thoughts there?
He has, yeah. If you watch the preseason week 2 against the Indianapolis Colts, Trey Benson looked pretty solid. He looked, obviously with his size, you could see it, and then you've got, some quick feet, and he wasn't going down at first contact. Like, I think that he showed some shiftiness. I think the one thing that he's going to have to just kind of get used to is maybe his vision and seeing rush lanes open up and where to go. But when he's found them, and he did against the Colts, he had 9 carries for 43 yards. He looked really good. And he also had a 19-yard near touchdown wiped off from, a holding call that was pretty questionable. So, could have had over 60 yards on 10 carries. So, and this is an offense, guys, that's geared to run the football. Like, the offensive line struggles in pass pro, but they are, like, from Paris Johnson Jr. to Will Hernandez, the Yelder Froholt, their center, they are all geared up to run the football. And then they added the best blocking tight end in the draft and Tip Ryman, and they were already really successful when Kyler came back last year and pounding the rock. They're going to continue to do that.
Absolutely. Like to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Into the receiver room, and you already mentioned it, Marvin Harrison Jr., the consensus number 1 receiver off the board here in this past year's draft. What's the chemistry look like between Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr.? And then outside of Marvin Harrison, like who's been the next man up? We've heard a lot of names in on Twitter and wherever. Just kind of what have you seen?
Yeah, so Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, is just going to be one of those undeniable X-wide receivers. He's the most talented player in that room, and he's going to command a lot of attention. But I think with that, it's going to open up some opportunities. When you look at the kind of the hierarchy, last year, 80 catches, 800 yards for Trey McBride, your tight end. But if you're looking at the wide receiver room specifically, with MHJ, as far as the rapport between him and Kyler, it's where, I think it should be. It's kind of like right on par with what people anticipated. And it's such a rhythm and timing offense that I think, like, it's going to take, without them playing together in the preseason and just really one joint practice with the Colts, it probably could take maybe the Bills game, maybe the week 2 against the Rams to kind of knock the rust off. But, a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. might not even have, like, he could probably overcome that. But I'm really excited about Michael Wilson. Like, Michael Wilson is a guy, he's a 3rd rounder out of Stanford, a guy that needs to stay healthy, but when he does, he's productive, and this team is really high on him. And here's why I really like him. At the end of last year, he was involved in a pick 6 against Philadelphia. But then from there, him and Kyler Murray got on the same page, and Michael Wilson went for a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. And the next week, he led the team in receiving yards against Seattle in the finale. And then all he did was work out with Kyler Murray this entire offseason. He's a guy that's engaged to this U.S. women's soccer team star in Sophia Smith. And he said that he wasn't focused on his fiance and, their relationship this offseason. It was him and Kyler Murray. And they were out, away from the facility, working out at local high schools, working out at UCLA. And it was Michael Wilson who led the Cardinals wide receivers and targets in training camp. So it's really interesting. He had a really intriguing rookie year, 38 catches for over 500 yards. And I think he's got the complete package. And it's just a matter of staying healthy And I think playing that primary Z wide receiver spot, he's going to benefit from the double teams that, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to command on the other side of the field.
Right on. And Zay Jones also getting suspended probably just opens up more opportunities for Michael Wilson, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Zay Jones, and Gannon said this multiple times, he's a 3-position guy. So he's like the main backup for MHJ to Michael Wilson to even Greg Dortch in the slot. He's got some, he can play in the slot. And, don't sleep on Dortch. I think Dortch is getting his first true opportunity here. And man, when he plays over 75% of the snaps, he is productive. And then you look at, just the surface level stats and then kind of the analytics, his ability to get open. He should be a good guy. You only see him around 200. I think maybe his career high is maybe 400 yards receiving. He should eclipse that easily, but it is by far, down the list as far as, from MHJ to McBride to Wilson, then Dortch, and of course with the James Conner in the run game also being a factor.
All right. Yeah, you mentioned Trey McBride already. He's another guy who came on the back half of the season, and fantasy managers absolutely love this guy.
Yeah.
With MHJ coming over, do you see him taking away opportunities, or do you see him being able to open up more things for Trey McBride to even produce even at a higher clip possibly?
Maybe it might be more quality over quantity, but yeah, I think that Trey McBride's role is pretty safe in this offense and will benefit from MHJ. We call it the McBridesmaid movement around our parts. Anybody who rosters him is a McBridesmaid. So, he had Zach Ertz in front of him for 5 games last year, inexplicably coming off an ACL injury, and then they get him in the lineup. And he's, doing things that an Arizona Cardinals tight end has never done. And, the 80 catches, 800 yards, I think he could duplicate that, but obviously that's with him playing all 17 games. So maybe on a per game basis, you see maybe a slight, decrease in production, but they're going to continue to exploit the mismatches. And Kyler Murray has a lot of confidence in his tight end to go beat up on opposing safeties. He did game 1 where McBride went off. It was his coming out party for 10 catches for 131 yards and was key down the stretch there. So I think he's always going to look to 85 in this passing attack.
Yeah, big favorite of mine in especially those full PPR tight end leagues. I do see a slight downtick in the overall game by game volume. Yeah, but I think he's still going to be super safe there up top of those tight end rankings. So, all right, man. So we are a fantasy focused show and site. So we've got to ask one sort of more fantasy focused question here. And what we've been asking everybody who comes on about their team is give us one player that you've sort of watched at camp that is going to surprise people. And this could be good or a bad surprise that fantasy managers need to know about.
Man, that's tough. I already kind of gave you the Michael Wilson insight that I have. That I'm high on that. I've even rostered Michael Wilson. And not a whole lot of people were sniffing around him as wide receiver 2 and all the mouths to feed. Outside of that, those guys, from Kyler, I agree with you guys. I think he is going to continue to be a very have a solid fantasy football season and maybe translate into a really good regular season. Man, the Dortch stuff I think is really interesting just because he's had to bang it over the head of coaching staffs that he's a good player, and they finally realized that, and he's going to start from this out of the gates here. He's always healthy, and they want to be able to get him the football 5 to 6 touches. So if you're in a pinch and you're looking at maybe a flex option, he's going to take over the gadget role that Rondale Moore had last year and the slot snaps. So we've seen Greg Dortch, stand in the backfield at the running back spot and take the handoff. We see him on wide receiver reverses. He's in the punt game. So I don't know, depending on what your league looks like, he's a punt returner, and it doesn't look like that's going to change at all with his increased role in the offense. So I think Greg Dortch is one of those real under the radar guys, heavy sleeper beyond, Michael Wilson, who's a sleeper status in his own right. So you're really getting into the weed stuff. Yeah, I think Dortch, like the Dortch with Greg Dortch.
There are a lot of Greg Dortch truthers out there who will pound the table for him for sure. But yes, outside of the diehards, it's hard to get a lot of Greg Dortch talk. So I like that. So
love it.
All right, Bo, I want to thank you for coming on here, man. This was great. Hopefully everybody was able to take some information from this and carry it over to their fantasy drafts. Before we let you go, though, I want to give you the opportunity to let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on this season.
Yeah, PHNX Sports. Find us on YouTube, wherever you find podcasts. We're talking about each and every team in the sports market, including my show, PHNX Cardinals. We're breaking down the latest breaking news as far as the Redbirds go, and looking forward to YouTube this rebuild and seeing what Kyler Murray can do going into a healthy season. So check us out, PHNX Sports. Follow me at Bo Brack, and really appreciate your time, guys. Joe and Dylan, really enjoyed it.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Great stuff.
All right, so that's it for our Arizona Cardinals training camp report check-in here. Before we go, just a reminder, hit that subscribe button, the like button, hit that bell, leave the comment, whatever it is, wherever you watch, listen, we appreciate it. And go check out the rest of these. There's lots of them and tons of good information to grab from these. It's amazing. Like I'm doing a Reddit AMA right now, and people asking questions. Oh, what about this guy? What about that guy? And I'm just like, I just constantly keep linking to these videos. They are fantastic. Like just to the information that I'm like, I would have never known that. Like, or like, a lot of people keep asking about like the Bengals backfield. Who's it going to be? And it's like both. And here's why. Just link straight to that one, right? It's just perfect. So I love these. And I feel like a better fantasy player just from doing these. So this is great stuff. So, all right. On that note, we are out. See ya.